Hey, Travel Brats. We're back with Ella Parlor, and today we're going to hit our part two. Hey, Ella, welcome back.
Hi, nice to see you, Sophia.
Nice to see you again, too. So, Ella, last time we left off, we got to know you a little bit, and we left off kind of on just solo travel and like getting to know, you and how you travel the world. So, I want to talk a little bit about your career and what you did because it's pretty darn cool. So, tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, thank you so very much. I think I touched upon it in our last episode, but my first work travel, like my first trip, it wasn't too far away. It was maybe a few hours from my house, but I had to work out there the entire week. So they put me up in a hotel room, and I was working really long hours. But that was my first trip, and I had a per diem, which felt so cool. It's like, wait, they're gonna pay for my food?
Yeah.
Um, and I remember my mother said to me, she goes, "You're gonna get bit by this bug, and it's never gonna be the same. Like once you start traveling for work, it's really nice, just to be able to work with different types of people. We've talked about the importance of a multicultural network and the fact that I've been able to work with brands from around the world. So I kicked off my career at this little I own my own marketing firm and I'm in the beverage sector. And I kicked off my career working for this little known company called Red Bull. And when I started there,
Little.
yeah, just a tiny one. You might have heard of him. But we when I started there in many years ago in 2008, the energy drink category was not even really a category. We were focused on educating people on what is an energy drink. No, it's not a soda. No, it's not a water. No, it's not a Gatorade. And really educating people on that distinction of caffeine and vitamins and boost and just energy drink, ED. The way that we know that today and the way that the category has grown, when I was at Red Bull, there were only two other energy drink brands, and they were very tiny. It was Rockstar, and then Monster, and then Coca-Cola bought Monster, and then bought Rockstar, and we were like, uh-oh, this is
Huh.
getting big. This is getting big. And to this
Yeah.
day, Red Bull is independently owned, but working at Red Bull, I was in Southern California, and the headquarters for North America is located in Santa Monica, California. And so what that meant was that I got visibility from global marketing leaders. So you had the Austrian team come into town, and I got to meet them, work with them for various projects because we had a lot of high visibility marketing projects in Southern California. We hosted several amazing events, groundbreaking events such as Red Bull Air Races, Red Bull Flutog, Red Bull Soapbox. And so I got to work with the teams, and it was just incredible. It was this blend of my love of culture, which is so big to me, my love of music, my love of people,
Mm.
like all of these passions rolled into one sector, which is beverage marketing. And so
Wow.
from there, my career grew into alcohol marketing. And I always say that my career is such a great love story that it became a bestseller. My book has landed
Mhm.
on my book High Tolerance, which is the story about my career, has landed on several bestseller lists. And I just feel so fortunate that I've been able to work with brands and brand leaders around the world. It's really wonderful. I've worked with several sports teams around the country, so I know the reason why I know a lot about the United States is because I've worked with several sports teams around the country. So I get to go to these cities and I get to be hosted around and see like, how the locals live, and it's awesome. I know that it's not for everybody, but I'm always surprised when I see someone in like a airport lounge and they're complaining about another work trip. And I'm like, you probably shouldn't be doing this then. Like, I
Yeah.
think I feel truly honored and blessed every time I'm able to travel really for free. I know that it's not for free. Like, there are times where I have to take a red eye and then I have to present. Like, I've definitely taken red eyes to New York like at 11 p.m. California time, and then land at New York 5 a.m. and then have to present at 8 a.m. with little sleep. I don't sleep on
Mm.
planes. That's one of my problems. I do not sleep on planes.
Oh no.
Um, So, I mean, it can be exhausting and it definitely can be taxing, but for the most part, I'm like, I get to go to Chicago, I get to go to Miami, I get to go to New York, I get to go to Charleston, I get to go to Dallas, which is, how I ended up falling in love with this city. I just feel so I feel truly, truly blessed. That and I think if someone can find a role, it's usually going to have to be in sales where you can be the traveling salesman. I would
Right.
say absolutely go for it because you will learn so much. And I talk about this a bit in my book. Having mobility is where you're really going to be able to create successful opportunities. And I think you can attest to that. You and your husband have accepted that mobility is how he's going to grow in his career and how you're going to support him,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, exactly. I love that because I feel like you've really analyzed your career and there are to you and your with your personality, your age, just what worked for you. There were more pros to traveling for work than there were cons. And I feel like even the cons, you really kind of overcame those and we're like, well, it is what it is. This 11 p.m. red eye is what it is. And I'm excited to go to New York and further my career and do what I do best. So, I'm interested to know how you basically built such an awesome network from world travel as well.
Yeah, I will say that I'm very blessed. I would be remiss to not acknowledge the fact that I grew up in Southern California, which is such a culturally rich place, not only from a tourist standpoint, not only from a population standpoint, but when you think about global businesses, Los Angeles, California, which is I grew up in Orange County, a suburb outside of LA, is a global market. It's one of the top global markets in the world. And from a revenue standpoint, from a GDI standpoint, GDP, I apologize, standpoint. And so when you look at that, it's like, oh my goodness, this is an incredible market. And what that meant for my career was that I had a lot of visibility to big campaigns, big instigations. Like I said, executives like global executives want to come to that market. And so I
Mhm.
I have to honor the fact that it's a high visibility market. It's also extremely competitive.
Mm,
Um, because you have the best of the best of the best going, everybody wants to live in Southern California. I say that hyperbolically.
yeah,
I'm being a little hyperbolic. I obviously moved away to go to Dallas for a reason, but it's a market that, from a business standpoint, if you're in an office anywhere in the country and you want to transfer to California, I guarantee there's like a list of like, we really we have a
right.
list of other people who want to transfer to California before you. There's just between the military bases, the vacation destinations,
Mm,
Disneyland, it has a lot of attractions. California has more pro teams than any other country in the world besides the United States, if you can like
right.
wrap your head around that fact, because that kind of blows my mind.
Yeah.
But that's how many pro sports teams that California has. So I have to honor that visibility. And it's not just me and my hard work. I'm such a believer that luck is where preparation meets opportunity. Yes, working hard matters, but there's still a bit of luck and opportunity that kind of arises, and you just kind of have to go for it. So that was a big thing. And then the second part was my mobility. I was able to kind of zigzag my way, up the ranks to the executive level because of my willing to move to emerging markets that other people didn't want to live in. My capability of working like I don't want to say lowbrow, but the less desirable markets that other people overlooked. And I'm like, I'm not worried that that place is XYZ. Again, those are my people. Like, I think everyone's my people. I get
Mm,
made fun of for that because I don't care what you say. I'll be like, those are my people. I just
that's
think if you
awesome.
have a heartbeat, you're my people. And so the way that I grew my career, I talk about this in my book as well, was I was willing to work the markets that other people were too good to work.
Mm,
And I was like, I'm not worried. I'll go work those gas stations. And I'm sure in retrospect, like I was probably putting myself in very dangerous situations at like 5 in the morning, having meetings at 7-Eleven, like when it's still dark, like probably not the smartest thing, but I had to pound pavement, baby. And so I really built my career in a scrappy way. And that's why I wrote the book because I get that question a lot. It's like, how did you build this? How did you how did you do this? And I'm like, it's just, you can't see the whole staircase. You're only going to see the first step, and you got to take it, and you got to be ready. You got to be prepared. And so I feel very, very blessed and grateful. But again, some people look at me and they're like, I could never. I ain't moving to that ghetto ass territory.
Well, you gotta have a high tolerance.
Exactly. That's exactly why I called it that. Like, you gotta have a high tolerance for pain, a lot of high tolerance for work ethic.
Yeah.
Um,
Lack
and
of
you gotta
sleep.
love people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to love people.
Mm,
I could appreciate, wanting to stay in your home market and not work with different cultures because you've had a negative experience. I've seen that with New York. Like, I've worked with people from around the country who just don't want to work with like New York because of the culture and, all of that. And I'm like, how sad, but they had
mm.
enough negative experiences that they're just like, I'm good on that. I'm good on that. I'm gonna stick to my homegrown corn-fed folk. And I just am like, everybody's my people. Let's go.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'm curious to know, we touched a little bit on it in part one, but like which countries did you enjoy traveling the most for work specifically?
So I haven't traveled abroad. I mean, I've worked abroad as far as, kind of digital nomad life, but
Uh-huh.
because of being in Southern California, most of the time my global counterparts wanted to come to SoCal.
Right. Oh,
It's one of the
shocking.
Yeah, it's one of the chips on my shoulder about like being from the Southern California market. And I think Miami would probably, like, the Miami market would understand this too. When you're
Hmm.
in a desirable, like a vacation market, people want to like bring their families. They're like, no, we'll go to you.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I've had counterparts around the world, but for the most part, like the only real international travel I've done is Mexico, like just for, work. I've met with business counterparts like in different areas, but not super formally. But I have been able to work with brands from Australia, all over Europe, UK,
Wow.
Ireland, Italy, France, of course, just being the champagne cognac, categories alone. So I've been really privileged that I've been able to kind of get a taste of the world, and then, um, feeling like I have counterparts and people that I've encountered throughout my life. The other piece I will also say where I'm so grateful is where I chose to go to college. Chapman
Mm,
University in Southern California. It's a tiny little school, but they pride themselves on being the most multinational school, meaning that per capita, we have more nations represented. I went to school with kids from all over the world. Like, that is their pride and joy. So when you get to the campus of Chapman University, you're going to be greeted by dozens of flags from different countries as like a welcome, and they're big on us being global citizens. There's a big global dome, and it's got all these international flags, and there's just such a focus on studying abroad. And they have an incredible global program all over the world where these recruiters from Chapman University, like, their goal is to have as many nations represented at their university as
wow.
possible. And so I
That's
feel
pretty
really
cool.
grateful. Yeah. I didn't
Yeah.
even realize that until I went there. But now on the other side, I have friends in Australia, in France, I feel very blessed. I've run into several friends around the world.
Mm.
I'm like, I'm in Barcelona. Why am I running into you? Like,
That's
what?
great though. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. It makes me think of when I was a junior and senior in college, I went to Everett Tennis Academy in Florida, and again, it was just a tennis academy, and we did online school for the last 2 years, basically, second last 2 years of high school. And yes, you kids from all over the world came. And so like I love having those contacts still, being like people are like, "Oh, what do you mean we can go to Austria and you've got a friend there, or Hungary, or it's like, well, I met them in high school, and I think that's such a cool thing. It's you connect with people all over the world and I think that's something people don't realize, like, oh, I wouldn't relate to that person in any way. And then you meet them and you're like, oh my gosh, they're a teenage girl like me, or they're a college girl like me, or they're a young, workaholic like me and whatnot. So I just think that's a really cool, is bridging the gap between cultures,
Yeah.
especially through your career like you did, especially through college like you did, like that, academics. It's really neat. So, I do have a quick question on, I know you touched a little bit on business benefits when you traveled. So tell us a little bit more about that. How'd you leverage business benefits to just enjoy your travels?
Well, I will say that it's kind of status quo.
Mhm.
If I can be frank, if you're working for an organization that tries to keep the benefits of your travel, that's probably a red flag for a terrible culture. It's pretty
Mm,
status quo that you, as the traveler, get to keep the frequent benefits. And I will say I've never worked for a company that keeps the benefits. I've always been able to keep the benefits, but I've had friends who have worked for organizations
mm,
that keep their points, keep their miles, everything goes through corporate. And I actually lose respect for organizations that do that, because what that says to me is that they prioritize the bottom line over the comfort of their employees. When it comes to
right,
business travel, and I've had these conversations because I've managed, multi-million dollar budgets, is, travel seems like a really easy way to chop expenses. You're like, oh, we're spending this much money on travel, and do we really need to stay in this nice hotel and blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, but you have to think about, one, the comfort of the employee, because I work better if I'm well rested, right?
right,
So that means that I'm going to be taking the more desirable flights. Well, the more desirable flights cost money, or I'm going to need to be in business class so I have a better Wi-Fi connection, so I have more leg room, because I have to get off that plane and go and operate. And if you want me to operate well, I have to be comfortable. I'm not saying that it's easy to have these types of conversations, but if you can justify, like, this is the work I do, these are the outputs I have, and this is where it's moving the needle. Do you see how, because the team was sleep deprived because you guys refused to give them hotels, the
mhm,
next quarter, it's like, no, pay the $700 for the hotel, because that $700, you as a company are going to get back a return on that investment in your employees' outputs. And I think that sometimes corporations really overlook that, or they don't even want, they'll give someone a territory that's super large and then not give them the budget to be able to travel across their territory. And I'm like, so
right,
now you have their territory being neglected, and now they're getting a negative impact from the brand. So I would say, then just don't have that like, just say, we don't want to pay for that territory yet, right, for the, smaller markets.
right.
And so I think that that's where it is important, and that's where I've been able to rack up like hundreds of thousands of miles and a lot of hotel points, and I'm really really grateful for that. And then of course getting status as a consequence. But the fact is I'm the one doing the travel. Like, it's not like someone's doing it on my behalf and then I'm reaping the benefits. Like, I'm the
Right.
one doing the hours and doing the miles.
Right, so you should get the benefits, you should get the
Hmm.
points. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. No, it's so true, it happens a lot, and I wholeheartedly agree that you should treat your employees well if they're traveling all over for you.
Yeah. I will also say, for anyone who's curious, because I get asked this question a lot, is that Chase Sapphire, in my experience, if you have good enough credit, you do have to have pretty solid credit. So, definitely over 700, I think. I
Mhm.
think their minimum threshold is 700 or 715. But if you can qualify for the Chase Sapphire card, that has the best travel perks. If you don't qualify for that card, I would say the next best card is going to be the Delta Amex Sky Miles card, the Platinum. That card is a lot more affordable, not affordable, but they have a lower threshold from a credit score standpoint. And then if you maybe aren't a frequent flyer, but you like to road trip, I would say the best card to get is going to be Capital One, the Capital One Saver one. So
Mm,
yeah, Capital One, you get some pretty good cash back on travel related purchases. Those are my three favorite credit cards. I only say that because a lot of people ask. And then
yeah,
I've been so blessed that when I do have corporate cards, there have almost always been American Express for the most part. And Amex just has, I mean, they're world class when
great.
it comes to their customer service.
Yeah, I love Amex. That's probably my favorite. I've got my Delta Amex and love it.
Yeah.
Use it for everything. But well, Ella, thank you so much. This was great. I do want to close with one final question. Just out of, your whole career and all the traveling and experience you had and travel perks and whatnot and hard work, what's the biggest takeaway? Maybe like the biggest thing you've learned from, your career.
I think with my career and really a lot of my life experiences, again, I feel so blessed that, everybody drinks beverages every day. So to be a part of beverage marketing, like you're a part of a lifestyle. Like this is, whatever your beverage that you're drinking, it's still something that's a part of your lifestyle. It's a part of your ritual. So I feel so honored that because I work in a lifestyle sector, I just
Mhm.
get to encounter people of all different types of lifestyles. And what I can say is that especially today, we are so focused on our differences when we are overwhelmingly almost the exact same. I mean, from a DNA composition standpoint, we're like 98% the same, like carbon,
Right.
water, oxygen, hydrogen, like we are the same. And yet that 2% difference that we have as people, we get so hyper focused on it. And it's like,
Yeah.
you are more alike than whoever that person is. Whoever it is, you are more
Mm.
alike than not.
Yeah. Amen, sister. We are all people and we are all the same. We are all equal. That is awesome. I love that. Well, Ella, again, thank you so much. This has been so interesting and so much fun.
Thank you so very much, Sophia.
Guys, tune in. I'm sure we'll have Ella back to talk about some Winky, most memorable travel stories. Catch you next time.